We are back, the Matt Barrie Show, presented by Allstate. The Sunday morning after a week 9 where things are starting to develop and shake up. I am Matt Barrie. Hopefully everybody had a good college football Saturday. I can tell you right now, see that helmet right there? I did not have a good Saturday. This is not about Arizona State, my alma mater, done for the year. It's a great run after their loss to Houston. But either way, look, final weekend before we get to Halloween weekend, which, by the way, once you get to Halloween, everything just zooms by. And if you're a team that needs to get a win to get back into the conference championship picture or the playoff picture, you'd better start doing it now, because we are getting down, hard to believe that I'm about to say, we are getting down to almost the final month of the regular season. Saturday, there were games all over the place that might have changed the coach's mind about a job, and B, may have opened the door for another vacancy. We'll get to all of that with Paul Finebaum in just a minute, but I want to start, as we always do, with our Allstate Good Hands Play, presented by our friends at Allstate. And this was a part of Alabama's comeback on the road in Columbia, South Carolina yesterday. Jeremy Bernard, 2 touchdowns, none bigger than that one. When it happened, when Alabama got the ball back after the Lenore Sellers fumble, I thought, well, Alabama's just going to get in field goal range, kick this thing, and get out of here with a win. But I'm guessing South Carolina thought, okay, let's just let him score, see if we can get the ball back. Either way, Jeremy Bernard, 2 big touchdowns, is Alabama. It is their largest road comeback, or it's the largest comeback in the fourth quarter since 2021, as they escape with a win in Columbia yesterday. What a remarkable finish for them, 29-22. We'll get into the Tide and all of that just in a minute. Is our Good Hands Play presented by Allstate. This week is Jeremy Bernard, as we bring in Paul Finebaum, as we do each and every Sunday. Paul's always got the same look, no bedhead. My bedhead, Paul, today is strong. That's how we do it on the Sleep Deprived Sundays. All right. There are a million things I want to get to today, but I don't want to make the episode too long because it gets too long. First, how was your Saturday?
It was good. We were in Norman. We did the last half of our show in the stadium in the rain, Matt, and my hair didn't get affected, but you should have seen Tebow and Jordan Rodgers. I mean, they were struggling.
Yeah, look, when you're the TV stars that they are, and you care a lot about the hair product, it could be a wild Saturday. The weather we thought was going to be a factor in Norman yesterday. Maybe it was for the crowd and the TV sets, but certainly wasn't the case for Ole Miss and Oklahoma. I'm going to put that aside for a minute, because to me, the biggest story right now, the morning after, is from Baton Rouge and Texas A&M and LSU. Now, I'm going to default to you on this one because you have Brian Kelly on your show each and every week, but there's a couple of ways I want to set this up. And I believe, here's what I believe with LSU. I believe that it is and should be one of the top 10 programs in the country year in and year out, no matter what. The past 3 coaches have won national championships. Nick Saban did so. Les Miles did so. Ed Orgeron did so. And in comes Brian Kelly. That's the 35,000 feet view, Paul. Where I think we might be having a little bit of a disconnect this year with what's actually going on in Baton Rouge. I think there was a lot of this preseason stuff with this team where Garrett Nussmeier comes back. There's a lot of momentum. Weeks is there held. Perkins is healthy. You're thinking Blake Baker, year 2, the defensive scheme, everything's going to figure out. But you look at the offensive line. There's true freshmen on the offensive line. They are inexperienced up front. Maybe, just maybe, they don't have a game stretcher like we're used to seeing. The year they had Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. Maybe, just maybe, Paul, this year was a year that was always supposed to be like this, which in year 4, LSU fans don't want to hear because they're thinking Brian Kelly and his system and his recruiting should have taken root by now, but it didn't, and they got absolutely bludgeoned by Texas A&M, by their former strength coach. It was the story of the day in college football, and now there are screams and yells for Brian Kelly after their 49-25 loss.
It is DEFCON 1 for Brian Kelly right now, Matt. And I say that as somebody who, you know how I feel about him. I talk to him every week before I talk to you on SportsCenter. And that doesn't matter, though. Losing and getting blown out for the second time now. Remember last year in early November, it was Alabama. Now it's Texas A&M. You can't let that happen at home. It's inexcusable. It's not accepted. And I thought the worst comment of the day yesterday came from perhaps the most influential person in the state of Louisiana. That's the governor, Jeff Landry. He tweeted to the Board of Supervisors and to the state legislature, after watching this tonight, maybe it's not a good idea to raise ticket prices. You understand, Matt, how political that state is, and the Capitol is right down the street from Tiger Stadium. And that was a body blow to this tenure of Brian Kelly, because everything is intertwined down there. I don't know what is happening behind the scenes. I know what Brian Kelly said after the game, and quite frankly, it really doesn't matter. He handled it better than some of the meltdowns that he's had previously. But it's a bad look. There's no sugarcoating it. LSU fans are hopping mad. And now it's a matter of what Scott Woodward does. There is an interim president. There's currently 5 finalists to take over. So that's always a complication. But sometimes when the most important topic of the day is college football, everything else takes a back seat. And this will be a fascinating week. LSU's off this week, and then they go to Bama.
Yeah, and all right. Year one of Brian Kelly, maybe I expect this, right? A roster that's really good, but it's not great. They lost a lot up front to the NFL. They don't have any real, like I said, guys that can stretch the field. LSU should be stockpiled with talent. Without you should stockpiled. For some reason, even in the Clemson game, which by the way now doesn't, I mean, what does that look like now moving forward? I just don't think this year's version of LSU is that good. I mean, it's just as simple as that. And therein lies the problem. Year 4 of Brian Kelly, a coach who paid a lot of money. You would think he would have put together a team, a program, and a roster that's got NFL talent everywhere. And maybe it does. Maybe it's young. But what do you see? I just don't think they're that good.
Yeah, I mean, we thought they were, and Matt, I don't need to tell you. I mean, for all the dumb takes that I've had before the season, I mean, there were plenty of equally dumb ones about Garrett Nussmeier and LSU, because that's just where we are in college football. This, to me, is not quite as epic as Penn State or Clemson, because let's be honest, I mean, LSU is losing to good teams. They're not just losing to dog meat out there, but they still have at least two games that they could also lose. And the narrative was playoff or bust for Brian Kelly. So I don't really know what happens now. I was there about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and the administration seemed aligned, but that was a couple of losses ago.
Yeah.
And I think you just have to read the tea leaves on how hot the pressure gets. Can LSU afford $52 million? And the irony is that the team that beat them, that the guy that will be making the decision on Brian Kelly, Scott Woodward, was the one who brought Jimbo Fisher to Texas A&M in the first place. So he's well thought of, and he's hired a couple of national championship coaches in women's basketball and baseball. That's not going to matter, though. Brian Kelly is subject number one, Matt, and it's not going away. And one more thing, the national media hates him, okay? So when it's discussed on shows up and down the dial, he will not catch any favors at all.
Okay, so there's the money aspect of it, and I'm glad you brought that up, because we live in a day and age, it's buyout USA in college football. $50 million, you think, for a program like LSU, probably not a problem. You bring up Woodward hiring Jimbo Fisher, also one of the most notorious buyouts in college football history. He likes to swing big. He likes to swing big money, and he likes to bring in a superstar coach. And in both instances, Jimbo at Texas A&M, and at least now Brian Kelly at LSU, does not appear to be working. So I don't mean this in the money sense of the buyout, but can LSU afford to keep him? Is this something where you get through the season, you dive into this roster, and you just say, guys, maybe this is a case of Texas, who, by the way, is still in it, or Penn State or Clemson, where at the beginning of the season, we focused on the quarterback and said, oh, these guys, I mean, this is a national championship type roster, like we did with Arts, like we did with Cade Klubnik and Clemson, like we did with Penn State. And maybe, just maybe, they're just not good. And maybe they're just above average, and that's just what this team is. But when you start pumping people in the preseason with all of these accolades, there's nowhere to go but failure if it doesn't live up to these preseason. Is that possible?
Matt, I've heard this a number of times in recent years when a program says we can't afford to fire him, and then you respond by saying what you just did. Can you afford to keep him though? And right now, I think there's more pressure on can you afford to keep him. I don't know how you can explain it away. And while last night seemed cataclysmic, he has another opportunity or two. And I think should he go to Alabama and Oklahoma and let, I think I'm trying to remember. I think both games are on the road, I believe. How do you explain away a 7-5 record when on Labor Day, Matt, a lot of people were saying on the network, I know I was sitting next to one, that LSU is the best team in the country. That was after the Clemson. So, I mean, that is the hard part to square. And Brian Kelly, he's from Boston. He's brusque for a lot of people in the South. He left Notre Dame by saying, I'm going to LSU to win a national championship, and Notre Dame played for a championship and LSU hasn't come close. So those are, and then the thing that really gets him, and I think it's somewhat artificial, but it's a fact that the last three coaches at LSU have all won national championships. Nick Saban, fairly quickly, Les Miles, fairly quickly, and Orgeron, fairly quickly. Two of those three were fired. And so what do you do with Brian Kelly after 4 years?
Yeah, look, it is one of those jobs we were just discussing it a minute ago that you get the right coach, given the talent in the area and the history of it with those other coaches. I mean, I don't know that we're wrong in here saying Brian Kelly's probably a better coach than Les Miles and Ed Orgeron. No disrespect to those guys, but they won the national championship. This one's going to be interesting. Is it possible? Another is it possible out of me. Is it just not a good fit? Are we realizing that maybe the infamous family bit at the introductory hello, we're here at the basketball game, is it possible that was a peek under the hood of it just not being a good fit?
Could be. Listen, this is my part of the world, Matt, and sometimes fit matters. Now, as soon as you say that, some would argue, well, hey, what about Nick Saban? But Nick Saban's the outlier. He'd already won a national championship. You could put Nick Saban in California or Maine or Texas or Colorado. It just doesn't matter. When you're that elite, where you come from makes no difference. Brian Kelly's a little bit different. And I think part of what is going against him now is that he just put everything in front of him. He moved all the chips to the table. And I mean, he left Notre Dame. I mean, the year he left Notre Dame, they were ranked number 5 in the country, I think, in the final poll.
That's right.
They almost got in, but he didn't care. He wanted out. So, and he had his problems at Notre Dame too. I mean, I think if you're Brian Kelly's agent right now, you're probably trying to figure out, is there somewhere I can go? Because I still believe he's a good coach, Matt. I don't know anybody in the industry that says, that guy can't coach.
I do too. I think he's a good coach. I just think sometimes, I mean, the cameras didn't do him any favors last night.
No.
You could just tell he was on edge from minute one. But conversely, I don't want to make this all about Brian Kelly, but you're right. Maybe there's a situation where it's like, I want out. I did what I could. There's going to be plenty of jobs open. I think there are a lot of programs that would say, you know what, I'll take Brian Kelly. As for the fit of those three coaches we mentioned, only Ed Orgeron's the Cajun. He's the only one from Louisiana. Les Miles is from Michigan, and that worked out. So either way, look, this one's going to be we're going to have to watch the radar on this one because last night, I mean, thunderstorms were brewing after the game, but it's just not a good look. The week off, things will settle down. Social media was all over the place. I just look at LSU and we were watching it in studio with EJ and Joey. Sometimes we just watch and they're like, you know what? They're not that good. They're not that good of a team. Conversely, A&M, not only are they really, really good, Paul, we said this on College Football Final. I think A&M, based on resume alone and how they've handled it, I think they're the number one team in the country as we sit here on October 26th.
They've done a great deal, and there's still a lot of argument against them. But and by the way, this is the second year in a row they have just eviscerated LSU too, and that's the problem. You can lose. I mean, losing is still losing, but
Yes.
if you lose a last second game at home, fans are going to be angry. But I mean, you saw that place as the game was over. There was nobody left, and LSU fans. They are the greatest fans in the world when things are going well, but man, they will turn on you, and they have turned on Brian Kelly, and that's the real issue for the administration out there. There may not be any getting them back.
Okay, so it's a nice little segue. And by the way, the Moffitt story with Brian Kelly, when he moved in, he'd been there in Baton Rouge forever. Brian Kelly moves on to his own staff. He comes back to Texas A&M. I think the number that Elko gave was 60-6 over the last 2 years. It's some stat, but it's not looking good in Baton Rouge right now. It's looking amazing in Texas A&M. Segue to the fact that there's this guy coaching at Ole Miss that everyone seems to think is theirs. But fact is, he's Ole Miss's right now. They avenge the loss to Georgia, go on the road to Oklahoma. Trinidad Chambliss stepped up when he needed to. And Lane Kiffin, who, by the way, already on social media, people are like, well, Lane won't take the Florida job. He'll take the LSU job because he has to. Job that isn't even open. Lane Kiffin, based on schedule, Paul, what a favorable step they have looking towards the postseason. They might be one of those golden teams that doesn't have to play in their conference championship and just sits back and wait for the college football playoff because they got it done yesterday in a huge way in a bounce-back win.
Yeah, listen, Matt, winning at Oklahoma is a big deal. I mean, every time I'm out there, I'm just reminded of the history, especially when the first person you see when you show up on the set is Brian Bosworth. That was a big win. That's one of the biggest wins he's had. Now, last year at home against Georgia probably meant a little bit more, and then he threw it away. And he's in really good shape. I mean, I think he's in the playoff now. It's just a matter of how he negotiates the rest of the season. And you mentioned it, not to start more speculation, but Lane Kiffin to LSU, that resonates equal or maybe more than the other one. But the good news for Ole Miss fans, that the fact that Ole Miss is in the playoff, but the playoff, the portal window is late this year, which makes it palatable. You can get 2 games in before the window opens, and that's a big deal.
Fine, I'll go there. I'll take the bait. LSU isn't, I mean, look, well, 2 parts. One, if you get to the playoff at Ole Miss, Paul, and you can compete for a national championship, if it's a place you're comfortable, I'm one of those that's like, well, if you can do what you can do elsewhere, stay at Ole Miss because it's a good job. They give you everything you need and they don't meddle. You go to Florida, they're going to meddle at every single thing you do. The money people are going to dive into business that's not theirs over and over and over and over and over again. They'll likely do that at LSU as well. But I think LSU on the surface, there's something different about that job. And I don't know if it's because of the national championship history that we just discussed. I don't know if the lineage of the NFL players all over the league are from, I don't know what it is, but I would think if the job came open, that's the one you're like, that's the job I want.
Matt, I'll just make it simple. LSU is a better job than Florida. Florida has been devalued. And, I always, I talked to Tebow about that yesterday. And most of what you talk about Florida is in the past. I mean, they have fired 4 straight coaches, okay? I don't need to tell you that.
Year 4 or less.
Yeah. I mean, you sat with number 3 for quite a while. And LSU is a lot different than that. They fire a few coaches now and then, but they usually pay it off. And they're capable of doing that. And it's just a completely different world. And, Kiffin's quirky, and would he fit LSU? Probably would. He just maybe fits that mindset a little bit better. Florida is a complexion of a lot of different interests and politics. Where LSU, you win, you're going to be okay at LSU.
I just keep having this discussion with my guys in the studio. Do you really want to enter this college market right now? Do you really want to get in this fray of what could be open? Because where are these coaches coming from? If you are making a move, if this is the year you've decided that your current coach isn't working out, you had better hit the home run because you're restarting the clock. 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, you've got to rebuild the program. Are there enough coaches out there If LSU moves on from Brian Kelly, there's another one with Penn State and Florida. If Auburn moves on from Hugh Freeze, there's another one with Auburn, LSU, Florida, Arkansas, Penn State. I mean, Paul, the list goes on and on and on. And look, I'm with you. I think LSU is a better job than Florida, and I particularly don't think it's close. So we'll see what happens there with Brian Kelly. But right now, Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, the story that he's developed this year, they're in a great spot based on what they did on the road at Oklahoma. Speaking of on the road at Oklahoma, it was happening, Paul. There was a 4-game gauntlet that Alabama had to go through. It was going to happen until out of nowhere, Ty Simpson and the Tide wake up, biggest fourth quarter comeback since 2021, an 8-point deficit, and they literally went on the road and stole defeat from South Carolina. To me, I learned more about Alabama yesterday than maybe I have during that 4-game stretch.
Yeah, and I think the shot of all the South Carolina students coming down to march on the field and take the goalpost down will never get out of Shane Beamer's memory bank. But that was fantastic. It was just stunning to watch. And it wasn't the fact that they were able to come back. It was just the poise that they had. Ryan Grubb just dialing home run after home run in the critical moments of the game. That was missing last year when Alabama couldn't get out of its own way. And, just South Carolina, Mississippi State deserved the award of they can argue with each other who had the most heartbreaking loss, but just understanding as you do, because you've lived there, how difficult Williams-Brice is when the sun goes down, and for Alabama to pull that off is remarkable.
When they didn't have anything. They didn't have anything going for them. The offense wasn't moving. The first touchdown was a pick 6. And then Lenora Sellers with the costly turnover at the end. I think South Carolina moves to 1-5 in league, which is kind of a surprise. There was another team coming into the preseason. Everybody's like, oh, they got the quarterback. They got Dylan Stewart. They have one of the better rosters in the SEC. They can't win. It's just been one of those years where these teams that were so hyped at the beginning of the year aren't going to be heard from come postseason. And I mean, that's the way it works when you play these games out and then you start figuring out who these teams really are. But that takes me to Texas, who was one of those teams. Somehow, somebody, speaking of fourth quarter comeback, 17 down in the fourth quarter, their largest comeback since 2007, as Texas goes on the road to Mississippi State. And, Paul, that thing was done. It was absolutely done. Texas was going to go to Starkville, and they were getting beat handily until they come back and win on a day where reports surfaced about Sark in the NFL. It was just a weird day surrounding Texas football, but at the end of the day, they got the win.
Yeah, I mean, you're down and you get a 79-yard punt return. Otherwise, you're about the 8-yard line. It was the second week in a row they won in overtime on the road. I mean, again, Kentucky and Mississippi State. I mean, I don't need to let anybody know we're talking about number 14 and 15 in the SEC in terms of strength. So remarkable beyond words. But let me address the Sark story that came out from Diana Russino. And what was so remarkable, Matt, is that Jimmy Sexton responded. I don't think I've ever seen him respond to a report. And you can argue, did he add credence or did he help quash the story? But the story was that Sark's people were talking to NFL clubs, primarily the Titans, and a million questions. Does he really want to be there any longer? Is Arch Manning going to be there? All these questions that nobody knows the answer to right now. Right now, Arch Manning is, I think, in concussion protocol or could be. They have Vanderbilt this weekend, and just as it looked like it was over for Texas, they actually have an opportunity now, assuming they can get past Vanderbilt. They still have to go to Georgia, and they have Texas A&M. That's pretty difficult. I think we could all agree, but it also, they're still the only team I think that could go 9-3 and still make the playoffs. Yeah,
you look at their standings in the SEC, they have just the one blemish, and that was to Florida of all teams. But right now, 3-1 overall. Their second loss was out of league week 1 to Ohio State. Yeah, the agent response and Sexton and CAA responding, it was weird. And when that report came out, it went everywhere. And then after the game, I don't know if you heard it, but Sark went off in the media in his post-game press conference about the report. I don't know. It's the coaching thing is just getting irresponsible. The whole thing, from the finances of it, with the buyouts and the financial restrictions the university places on themselves, to all of these in-season firings, to all of these in-season hirings to jobs that aren't even open, is throwing the whole damn thing off, Paul, because you've got these coaches that are still with their programs that Lane has to go talk to his team the night before the game about the Florida rumors because all this stuff is going out there. It's like we can't focus on the season in front of us because everyone's so paranoid about the coaching job and they want to put coaches in places where agents might be moving their mouths or not to get their other clients bigger deals and restructure their. It's getting too much. Why can't we just talk about the football?
Yeah, and listen, I'll spare the audience the many layers of what agents do. Their job is one thing: is create a better market. And I tended to believe the story only because why would Sark be trying to leverage his situation in a very bad year? He's been to the semifinals 2 years in a row. This is not when you play the game of, oh, okay, I'm going to try to get a raise. But sometimes these things are not meant to get out. Sometimes they are intentionally meant to get out. And the one thing that it has done, first of all, nobody believes anybody's denial anymore. You and I know that. So Sark is now at least technically in play for the NFL. And does that help him? Yeah, I'm sure it probably does. If this season goes bust and he decides, and maybe Arch decides to do something else, I have no earthly idea what Arch Manning is going to do. But Sark might say, I've had enough of this.
Yeah, and look, the agent's job, you said, is to create a better market. So Sexton just putting that out there, if he did or didn't. I mean, Diana Rossini's a reputable reporter within the NFL circles.
Yeah.
Whatever, let's just say that happened. Then all Jimmy's doing is creating opportunities for his other clients who might be interested in the Texas job to get better deals and more money. It's all a money circle, but it just creates.
So let me ask you this question. Jimmy Sexton represents a lot of people, including Lane Kiffin.
Right. It's all connected. Jimmy Sexton represents all of, if there's a coach that's in a big program that's making a lot of money, Jimmy Sexton reps him, and it all.
One of the few people he does not represent is Brian Kelly.
Yeah, we saw that in the SEC documentary on Netflix when he was talking to his guys. So at the end of the day, it's all about money, and that's what this has become. But I just hate this in-coaching BS because it just takes the attention away from the game and puts it squarely on things that don't need to be talked about right now. Speaking of things that need to be talked about, I said Texas A&M could argue they're the number one team in the country. So could Indiana. Now, I get it. The resume with Indiana, not great, but boy, do they bludgeon anyone that comes across them.
You know what? I really am a big fan of Curt Cignetti. I think he's a very likable, engaging personality. And I was watching that game on the plane yesterday, coming back, and what a great story. And I'm just so glad that all of us in college football have wrapped our arms around Curt.
There you go. That's the good way to handle Indiana right now because they're fans. Boy, they'll come and get you no matter what. Look, and they're going to have something to say about it. I would say right now, based on everything that I see in front of me, we talked about yesterday, their schedule, Indiana, they're in the Big Ten championship and they're in the college football playoff. They've got Maryland, Penn State, Wisconsin, Purdue. They're in. I mean, you want to
and Matt. They're really good. I can say that. I mean, I try to follow college football like you do, and anyone who says they're not really good, I'm far more impressed this year than I was last year.
Yeah, they're dominant. I mean, in every phase, they're dominant. Again, we have fun with it because of Curt Cignetti, but they did go on the road and beat Oregon, who had to mess with the weather yesterday to beat Wisconsin. Either way, Indiana, congratulations. You were the first team in the college football playoff schedule. You're not losing any of those games that are coming. So that's where we are. We're heading into Halloween week. Hard to believe. Paul, give me a table setter for next week as we are now heading into, hard to believe, the last week for the final month of the season.
Yeah, Matt, I need some help from you from the rest of the schedule because in the SEC, it's pretty weird. You've got the Vandy at Texas game. that nobody really thought about. And you have Georgia, Florida, which may be about as off-Broadway as it's ever been.
Yeah, and you bring up Vandy. I mean, they got the win against Missouri yesterday, 17-10, kind of a slugfest. Clark Lee's premonition of you got to go through Nashville for the SEC a few years ago was kind of like laughing material, but now it looks to be true. Left for Vandy at Texas, as you said. Who knows, again, what's going to be happening with our guy Arch and the concussion protocol. Texas, Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee. I mean, they're only the one that stands out, obviously, at Texas. Again, we'll see who's playing quarterback. But all that's left there is at Tennessee.
Yeah, no, you're right. What's really interesting is that Vandy finally got taken seriously yesterday. I know the insiders have been taking them seriously all along, but I think if you pull the camera back for just a second and you look at these stories, and I know you talk about it every Saturday, but Georgia Tech, Virginia, Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
You literally, you couldn't have convinced me of any of this, or anyone for that matter, 4 months ago when it was all about Penn State, LSU, and Clemson. And of course, Ohio State as well. They're the forgotten school. I mean, are they? I'm not even sure Ohio State's still playing football right now. Do you? You know?
Bye week, they're just going to beat the hell out of whoever they play next, and they move it because their schedule is not great. I mean, they're the last thing in front of them, I think, is Michigan, and we'll see if Ryan Day can get that done. But to your point, I mean, even last night on Final, we were talking about like Cincinnati. Cincinnati stubbed their toe against Nebraska, but they're at the top of the Big 12 with BYU, who looks – I mean, this is – I'll say this. We can be kind of curmudgeon with portal and NIL and these players making a ton of money, and sometimes maybe the motivation is lost on the field because they're getting paid a ton to play, and there's no repercussion. It's like you got the money, you don't have to pay it back. It's these other schools now that you mentioned, Virginia, Vanderbilt, some of these teams that actually they look hungrier than some of these traditional blue bloods because the playing field has been leveled in college football, and that any week an upset's capable. North Carolina went for 2 to beat Virginia yesterday. It's just one of those years, Paul, where anything can happen because I think the portal has allowed rosters to be retooled and rebuilt. And Wake Forest beat SMU, last year's participant in the ACC, and a playoff team on a last-second field goal with a first-year head coach.
Well, it was so sad, and I was, the luxury of being on a plane and watching a bunch of games. But I watched the end of the North Carolina-Virginia game, and it was ACC Network. Matt, I really don't remember who was calling the game, but they were alibiing for Bill Belichick for going for 2, and what a great call it was, and it was the right decision, as if he was some 5-year coach about to get fired, and they were just trying to make him look good. I mean, and you just forget this is Bill Belichick here, and you talk about how all these other things have happened, how quickly the perception of this guy has changed, where some guys on the ACC network were trying to prop him up because he made such a gutsy call to go for 2.
It's been, I don't even know what to think about this season. It's just been, I don't know. Luckily, we have about 5 weeks left.
I know you started the year there, but I'm sure it seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh. When we called South Florida Boise State in August in our first Thursday night game of the year, that seems like it was in 2024. And now we're headed to Halloween weekend. And I'm telling you, this last month of the year, it will be an all-timer because we have no idea what to expect. And that's what we try to bring you each and every Sunday here on the Matt Barrie Show, presented by Allstate.
You want this, you got that. No way, watch them walk right past you. Run fast while you have the chance. Don't speak loud.